Tiffany and Carrie.
Hello, everyone. This is Carrie.
And this is Tiffany. Hello.
And welcome to the Joyride Show. And okay, I want to start this by doing a shout out.
Shout out.
We have a fan club president that we need to talk about. Sherwin Bro.
Hi, Sherwin.
Nanny Bro. She's my bonus mom, and she has not missed one show. And she gives great feedback. And she is just the most amazing, supportive mom ever. So I just wanted to give her the kudos she deserves.
Thank you.
Yes, we do love you. All right, guys, we have a great show. We
have a new friend.
We do have a new friend, Miss Ashley Aliff.
She's a fellow metaphysical mama.
Truly, in every sense of the word. She has 2 babies, these itty bitties, and yet she has found time to document what started as documenting her Kundalini awakening has turned into this incredible endeavor, this website full of really kind of anything from the awakening and the different things you go through to numerology, astral travel. It just has grown and grown and grown. And what I love is that she opens her website up for people to tell their stories, answer questions. So there are all these different subtexts within this one spot. So anyway, let's welcome
Miss Ashley. Hi, Ashley. Welcome to Joyride.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Oh man, thank you so much. I mean, she was just game. I reached out last week and she said, "Sure, let's do this."
I love that.
Yes.
And the universe conspired for our success. That's fantastic.
And here it is. So first of all, how are you? How are you and the babies?
I'm doing good. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh.
And when you say babies, you've got like 2 under 2? You got a couple little bitty ones, right? Or
yeah,
18 months
one's 3 and one is 1.5.
You are in the thick. Whew.
And you're in Illinois?
Indiana,
that's
Indiana.
right. See, you're just virtual. So I don't even know what physical place you're in. I just see your website, theawakenedstate.net. And I love your site, by the way. I just love the visuals and the sacred geometry, the colors, and how it's presented so much information on a variety of topics so clearly. So bravo to whoever does that.
Yeah.
I usually do all the graphic design.
Oh my gosh, the graphics are incredible. They really are. You'll have to pop on just to take a look at that. It is. Your pictures are beautiful.
Thank you.
They're inspiring.
And you're so young too. You seem like
I'm 27.
You have gone through this in your 20s and created the awakenedstate.net, and we're going to get into your whole story of how you got here. But what you have is I see it as a haven for the others that are going through this process of their own spiritual awakening. And for many people, I feel like it hits you upside the head. You have no idea what you're going through. All these strange physical, mental, emotional, spiritual experiences, some paranormal. And I read on your site is dedicated to research, expression, and the experiences of others going through the process of their spiritual Kundalini awakening. And you don't put labels on things. You just kind of have it as an open forum and throw kind of all things out there. And I thank you for that, because you've given a lot of people some really important tools for understanding it and how to align with what they're going through.
Well said.
Well, I feel like when we add labels to it, like, we dehumanize it a lot. So it's really important to realize that, you're not special. This is very normal. It's like we don't think it's normal, but it's actually a very innate part of us.
So is it normal for everybody to go through some kind of awakening, or some people just don't wake up at all in this lifetime?
I believe that we all are capable of this. We're all connected. It's more so a matter of their soul contract and basically what their soul's progress needs to go through to get to a certain point.
Right. And I understand the energy of this time right now. We are really being more and more being called to wake up. More and more, kind of the alarm clock's going, and we're trying to hit snooze.
A lot of resistance brewing.
Yeah, but that is the impetus for change, I think, is the contrast to.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that we need that, and boy, have we manifested it. But it is but we won't go down that road. It's funny because you say that, Tiff. My husband, who is a very advanced soul. The people that I've spoken to tell me that he's really advanced, but he has zero interest in this. I mean, not that he isn't interested in what I'm up to, but he's like,
he's not seeking it.
I'm not seeking it. I said, yeah, but your father passed. Do you wonder where he is? Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
It's like, really, how? I mean, but he's very scientific engineer brain, which actually allows me I get to kind of, I guess, ground myself in his platform and then go fly.
Yeah, because if both of you were like that, I don't know if the house would function.
It probably wouldn't.
Not as well, not. Maybe.
Yeah.
Y'all are your yin and yang.
Well, so tell us a bit about this. You started the process about 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 or 6 years ago. Gosh, it's such a huge story. I'll try to keep it short.
Well, no, we've got time. We want to hear it.
Yes,
because what you've gone through is...
Well, I would say it all started with love. I fell in love with a really nice guy, and we eventually ended up doing psychedelics, and I had a really bad trip. And ever since then, it was like the floodgates open. I was starting to like open up my awareness. And I began experiencing these symptoms where I would have involuntary out-of-body experiences. It was really bizarre. I would feel like I was half in my body, half out of my body. It's very hard to describe, but it was such a bizarre experience. And eventually, like, we ended up breaking up, and then that deeply crushed me. And I began experiencing what I call the dark night of the soul.
Yes.
And it's kind of where the soul literally goes through a symbolic death, because the consciousness is basically trying to be, like, rebuilt.
Yeah.
So I was so upset. I was really, you go into this almost, like, dark pit of despair, and, like, all my old issues started reappearing, like self-harm and self-worth and, hating myself. And then eventually, I just started rebuilding. Like, I began forgiving myself, and I started being happy just for being me. And eventually, I went to college, and by this pure synchronicity, I found this class called Energy Wisdom, where you can learn about energy and the chakras and how thoughts are vibrations. And I met this teacher called Diane, who is a Reiki teacher, and she began telling her story of how she healed herself from throat cancer, and it just deeply spoke to me. And I just started really practicing, chakras and how energy works, and then I began experiencing these subtle changes in my awareness. And then one day, it was just absolutely amazing. I was at college, and I was studying philosophy, of course, and I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I saw this huge blue orb of light just sitting right across from me. And it blew my mind. I was just like, oh, my God, I'm seeing energy. I can't believe this is happening. And ever since that day, which was also, by the way, 11/11/11.
The day you started your site. Facebook.
After that day, it's just like my world just totally started shifting. And, like, I began experiencing more symptoms, and at this point, I didn't really know what was going on, so I started researching like a crazy person, and, I was really hungry for information and trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
Well, like what kind of symptoms?
Even on Tumblr, I found this list of symptoms of a spiritual awakening, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy, but I think I'm having a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
And, it was, events that alter your life, seeing and feeling energy, having out-of-body experiences, having vivid dreams, and, the list just continues. But I just began experiencing all these changes, and then it just started, like magic, like the ripple. I began contacting people. I started reaching out to just totally random people. I'm like, are you experiencing this too? Like, how can I, what is going on? Like, I need to know what is going on with me, because I feel crazy. And then it would just, escalate. I found Facebook groups, and I met so many beautiful people, And they would share their experiences, and then I'd be like, oh my God, this is so much bigger. This is so much bigger than I thought, you know. Other people are experiencing this too, and it's not just me. I'm not going crazy. And it was just amazing. Like, we formed Facebook groups. We called one the Star Children, and I started learning from them and building up my skills, and I made a lot of friendships. It was really amazing. But it was just interesting because all these people just kept coming to me. And, like, I have a friend in Bulgaria now. Like, he's really cool, but he was also going through the awakening process. And another person, Carol, who's in Illinois, like 3 hours from me.
Wow.
Which is crazy because, you know, I never would have met these people before. And then what also happened is I began attracting, like, spiritual things. Like, I kept finding crystals, and, like, crystals kept coming to me. And I kept investing in spiritual books and tarot cards. And then even crazier is, this is where the story gets really weird. I contacted my ex-boyfriend, who was the person I broke up with that triggered my awakening, and he also went through spiritual awakening. And then so we started getting back together, communicating. It was really amazing.
That love came full circle.
Well, no, you had to break up in order to experience this. That's so interesting. So now, did you get back together?
Oh, yeah, we got back together. He's the father of my baby.
Oh, I guess you did get back together.
Yay.
Oh, that's
a happy ending.
Yeah.
So what are some of the physical signs? What are some things that was it equilibrium, headaches? I mean, did you actually have physical sensations?
I would say the biggest one in the beginning is hypersensitivity. Like, you have a lot of, you feel almost claustrophobic in a way to environments because you're starting to feel energy, but you don't know you're feeling energy. So you begin experiencing almost like frequencies. And so you get really hypersensitive to everything around you, and your soul almost just wants to, like, retreat. And a lot of people experience anxiety. Anxiety is a huge one because they don't realize what's happening to them. So they begin having all these, like, fear reactions, and, you know, the ego fights, and basically you start having, like, heart palpitations, and this is the heart chakra opening.
And you were also saying you built skills, too. What were some of the skills that you have been building?
I would say some of the skills were, like, healing practices, and I learned Reiki. We did long-distance Reiki treatments. That was really cool.
That is cool.
I also learned tarot, like, by just pure intuition. You know, I started studying it, and then it was just so easy. I'm like, why do I keep, putting this off? This is easy. And just a lot of different healing practices is what the main thing was. I learned how to do attunements. That was very interesting.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't go all the way through the instructor master course?
Mm-hmm. No, actually, one of my friends, Trent Hellier, basically he went through the process over distance. It's really interesting, but you can do that as a sensitive because you're sensitive to energy. And yeah, he did everything long distance. So I was receiving the attunements while he was, like, in Washington.
Wow.
It was crazy. But I learned the entire process.
Well, there's no such thing as time and space, so you really can do distant healing. I've only gone through Reiki 2, so we did the distance, but it is I have to say I haven't practiced very much. But oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that you're going through all this physical discomfort, anxiety, while at the same time, so I'll call that I won't say it's negative, but that's a con. But then you've got all the pros where you're actually becoming able to use that energy for healing and understanding and calming. So they're kind of happening simultaneously. So a lot of people going through this might call it a midlife crisis, or go to the doctor, or take a pill to just get through it, to cope with it.
A lot of people believe they're either losing their mind or they're completely dissociated. Like, a lot of people actually get labeled with mental illness, and it's really sad because they're basically just experiencing spiritual awakening.
You know what? Yoga.
Yoganandi?
Yep. Thank you. That's what he said. He went to the psych ward and he said half of the folks here are actually waking up, that they're not crazy. They see spirits. They hear spirits. But we think, oh, they're schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Thank you. And but they're really not. I mean, they're just waking up.
I know Marianne Williamson's latest book, From Tears to Triumph, she talks about so many people are having a dark night of the soul and are trying to medicate themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And she's not saying that medication is not sometimes very necessary to help the brain equalize, but many people don't understand what's actually happening to them and are trying to avoid it when it's exactly what you need to go through, what your soul is wanting you to progress through.
That's exactly right.
But wow, doing it alone must be terrifying.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, it's a journey, let me say that. There's some high moments and then there's some low moments, but.
Okay, so can we go back to one thing? I've always wondered about this. So the psychedelics, how does that look? I mean, and I'm sure it's different for every person, but they always, I mean, there've been studies on this, how you really can shed the body and as spirit, you kind of go out into the world. Is that right?
It's hard to say. I mean, I believe psychedelics are more like a tool into the inner mind. Like, it's literally a tool into understanding who you are. Mm-hmm. So, what exactly are you asking?
Well, I was just wondering, we've seen it in different shows, and how does it feel? I mean, I know that you said you had a bad trip, and I've never gone down that path, and just with drugs, and I mean, I don't really judge it, but I've just have never been called to that.
Well, what happened to me is I experienced ego death, and I didn't realize I was experiencing ego death because I was still really new to everything around me, and so I literally felt like I was dying. It's a very bizarre feeling. It felt like the room was closing in on me, and I couldn't breathe. And basically what happened is we did it at a concert, so I was feeling everyone in the room. It felt so claustrophobic to me because I didn't realize I was sensitive to energy at the time. So what happened was I was just feeling the entire room. It felt like I was almost in tune with the collective consciousness, but I felt like I was dying, and it was very scary for me because, we're surrounded by people. It was very cinematic almost.
I bet it was.
But what happens is in any psychedelic trip is you experience the death of the ego. And sometimes it's either a small form of ego death or it's like a huge form of ego death. But what happens is the ego kind of just strips back, and you're able to see clearly who you are. You are able to approach almost a symbolic death of the old self. So your old identity is completely ripped to shreds in that moment. Most of us don't know what to think with that. So what happens is we think we're dying, but we're not. We're being reborn. And it's really beautiful because, after I had the bad trip, everything calmed down after that, and I was fine. It was kind of funny, but because of that experience, it triggered me. And because of what it did is it triggered my Kundalini and completely catapulted me awake.
Wow. So, but you can't go back from that, though. I mean, once you've experienced that, you can't unexperience it. You know what? We're about to head into a break, and we'll...
And we're back on Joyride speaking with Ashley Aliff, who's a fellow metaphysical mama, and her website is theawakenedstate.net. We'll put links to everything we're talking about on our website, which is joyrideshow.com. Look for the episode blog and all the different things that Ashley's up to, because if you're going through your own spiritual awakening, Kundalini arising experiences alone, it can be quite disorienting. Well, and so Ashley, you've been telling us about how you sort of, the catalyst was you got into that altered state of consciousness with a psychedelic, and the very limited knowledge that I know about them is that they, that's been around for forever, and all different kind of ancient wisdom. People using mushrooms and ayahuasca and peyote and to get to these altered states of consciousness, to expand the awareness and to, like you said, to lose the ego identification that we have in this life. And then all of the benefits, once you get on the other side of that ego death, all the benefits that are there. But many of the ancient traditions are recommending doing it with a mentor, with an experienced guide, not sort of a recreational investigation, and not knowing, because some psyches can't handle that intensity. So doing it with a mentor or a guide or some kind of spiritual practice where you can do it more gently. And I think that speaks to your question, right, Carrie, about does it have to be a big traumatic?
Well, we've all heard of these things. I mean, we've all heard of people that have the awakenings. Tiff, you and I have a friend that she was in the hospital with these different, with all these
seizures,
seizures, and she finally realized, oh my gosh, that's what this is. And it stopped as soon as she kind of asked for a more gentler approach. But then, like you said, on the other side of that, she could see spirits, she could communicate, talk to angels.
She's channeled
she opened up. Yeah, exactly. And so I wonder about that. And if people have gone through it in an easier form, and can you ask for an easier form of it? What do you think about that, Miss Ashley?
I think it really depends on the individual. It doesn't necessarily have to be so hard. There's a lot of people I know and who've come to me on the blog. They're like, well, I've been awakened since birth. I don't know what you're talking about with this specific date, because I just feel I've been awakened forever. And some people are like that. It's
just come in
it's almost
awake,
like a cosmic choice. Like, I feel like maybe I had some agreement in a past life where I needed to have like some alcheminal experience to wake me up.
Yeah.
Or, it could be different for every individual. I also feel that a lot of that comes back to our childhood upbringing and those beliefs that we carry, because mine was all about ridding fear. That was a huge part of what I went through, because as a child, I was afraid of everything. So being able to approach fear with faith really kind of just catapulted me into a whole new territory.
So you grew up fearing fear, and now you've developed a different relationship with it. Is that what I'm understanding you saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I was able to witness ego death.
Okay, you got to tell me, what does that feel like to witness ego death? I mean, that's...
Oh, gosh.
And was it just in that one psychedelic experience, or was it...
absolutely blissful. It's going to sound weird, but...
we want to go there.
Okay. I don't believe death is real.
Yeah, we don't either.
Nope. I believe it's just an illusion we create through the fear of separation, and the soul is eternal. So what we experience through ego death is that the identity we make up is basically based on our past and future selves. So in the present reality, we are always real. And it's an absolutely blissful feeling knowing that you are made of love, you came into the world through love, and it's going to sound really silly, but you are a star cluster that is made of a cosmic orgasm. You are literally the manifestation of love.
Woohoo! Love children.
Yeah, and that is true ego death.
A star cluster of cosmic orgasm. Is that what you said? I got to write that down.
Yeah. I'm writing it down. I'm already there.
That's who I really am. Did you know that?
I love
Thank you.
The wisdom that you have at such a young age is incredible. I mean, just the fact that you can see these things and you really truly get it is amazing. That is beautiful.
And so
part of that is just because I put myself out there, and I listen to everyone I come into contact with, and I really observe like the patterns. Because what's really weird also about spiritual awakening is it happens kind of in stages. Like there will be a stage where like people who are really early on the process, they're obsessed with astral travel. I don't know why, but it's almost like they're dissociated. So they keep wanting to learn astral projection. And then they start experiencing the energy. And then it just kind of transfers over and over. And I feel like it's almost similar to the chakras because, the root is all about fear and our connection to the world. So it's almost, and then you go into like, you know, the sacral, which is creativity, and then the solar, and the solar is all about willpower and the maturation of the ego. So in that, the hugest shift on the spiritual awakening is the mind, which is the solar plexus, and the heart merging as one.
Yeah,
so it's really interesting to me because to be able to see all those different perspectives, you start to see how everyone has this particular shift.
Right.
And it's really fascinating.
When you were in your blissful state and you felt like you were connected to everyone and everything, that's what all the ancient wisdoms teach us, is that we are that. And I can kind of get it,
Yes.
you know, I can kind of imagine what that might be, but to actually experience it, I have personally not gone there yet. That would be amazing to get to that state.
It's so beautiful, you know. I mean, I don't recommend psychedelic tools to everyone because I don't think some people can handle it, but if you're able to witness that, it's just so beautiful.
So has
it's hard to even describe. It's so beautiful.
Has that stayed with you?
Literally like you were witnessing heaven on earth.
Yeah. Has it stayed with you? Has that made the imprint and made the shift where it stayed with you, or do you forget and get back into your, you know, fear and mode? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, even the bad trips are technically good trips because they've showed me so much about myself.
Right. And so you've done this without sort of this mentor guide that I've always been told you have to have a guide, you have to have a mentor.
Yeah.
You've kind of done it on your own, it sounds like. You didn't take that route.
Yeah, I always do it with my my fiance.
Oh, so he's your buddy. You got a buddy. You got a spirit buddy with you.
Got a spirit buddy.
Yeah, I'm
Don't go to
I'm
Woodstock,
very
buddy.
sacred about it. Like, you know, I normally am very strict, and you know, I'm not like a raver or anything. I make it like a ceremony. It's very special.
I wonder what you were in your past life. I wonder who you were in your past life. Shaman, you know, I would love to know that because I think that would shed a lot of light onto who you are now. So that is incredible. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling us about all of that.
Yeah.
Wow. So you do actually carry that. So each time you experience that, do you bring more of that into your, I guess, who you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I believe every experience that we have like that is really almost like a cosmic ripple being sent out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and there's a chemical thing going on too. Like the DMT is actually awakening the pineal gland to make its own dimethyltryptamine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The spirit molecule, they're calling it.
What I believe is so beautiful about DMT is it's what we experience during childbirth.
Right.
Ah.
And they say your body manufactures it in meditation.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only time that your body will create it. Well, maybe when you do psychedelics or things. I heard you have it's called Psychonautics on your website, and I had to look that up. And it was Sailor of the Soul, where you get in psychonauts. You get into altered states of consciousness with meditation or mind-altering substances. So you can do it without the substance by going into your mind, and it will actually create this exact same spirit molecule, DMT.
Yeah, you can do some of the stuff sober too. Like, you know, if you go into trance or even like a very deep state of hypnosis.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this. I'm silent.
It's not just all about, you know, the tools. It's, you know, it's the most important thing I've learned is you are your teacher. You know, you don't need a mentor. The mentor is just the tool.
Yeah.
And regardless of whatever you do, you are the strongest teacher.
I agree with that. I have this library, this huge library and I just, like you said, I buy books and books and books and books, and then finally I was done. You know, like no more books, go inside, and I realized that everything at this point that I look for is already inside. I just have to go in and ask.
Yes.
And so, and I think that's an evolutionary part. By the way, so you went to college, and at your school, they actually had this class on energy? What school did you go to?
So bizarre, right?
Yeah.
You know what's so even weirder? After that season, they took it off.
So it was just for you.
Yeah.
It was just for you.
It literally felt like it was just for, there's probably maybe 6 people in the room.
That's
And I
incredible.
think by the end of the class there was 4.
You lost some.
So it was really interesting.
Okay, I just had an aha moment.
You
a
know,
minute
and I
ago.
talked to her, I think it was a year after the class, and I'm just like, you know, you changed my life. And yeah, and she taught me this really beautiful thing, because I was in a state where I was really fearful still, because, you know, I was
Yeah.
having those past beliefs come up since I was working on my chakras. And she's told me something that stays with me forever. And she said, you know, you can choose to look out that window and you can see destruction and death and terror, or you can choose to see heaven. But it's your perceptions and it's your choice.
Free will, baby.
Law of attraction,
and
too.
it's just, you know, every time someone comes to me and they're like, well, what about the world right now? What about this? And I'm like, you have a choice. You can choose to feed the fear and feed the problem, or you can start being the solution and being the change. And that is what I really strive on teaching, because so many of us, especially right now, are like flailing in chaos with all this fear energy.
Yeah.
And we need to learn that it's an illusion. It is totally an illusion.
Well, it's a control.
And the only way we can start moving beyond that illusion is if we decide through faith and by living in love.
Which is not living in ego. I mean, it is literally getting out of, to me, that's getting out of the head, the fear, the ego. So you literally have to go through that ego death to be able to even access that place of love. And it exists in everyone,
Yeah.
but we just don't know it because we're so attached to the ego.
It's true.
But now, at the same time, the ego isn't necessarily bad,
No.
because what happens with the ego is it's basically a teacher. And your resistance is teaching you.
Yeah.
Because your resistance is basically a stepping stone.
Well, okay, so that brings me to the next step. Or I actually wrote that down. So if you want to awaken and you want to really kind of come into who you really are, it doesn't have to be earth-shattering, people falling out of your life, because I've always thought that it meant you lost your job, you break up with your spouse, however that looks, where your life just crumbles apart and then you rebuild it. And that seems to be a theme, or an illness or a loss of a loved one, and which kind of catapults you into this search mode, this seek mode, which then you start to discover. But let's just say you want to go through this and you want to do it in a very gentle way, in a kind way that doesn't really turn your apple cart upside down. And yes, I know that's very controlling, and I'm trying to set the standard. Tiffany's looking at me like, yeah, But is there a way that you can do it with the least amount of resistance? Or did I just answer my question? I think I did.
I think it really depends, you know. I mean, some people who go seeking for the awakening and, like, they do Kundalini yoga, or they do Kundalini practices, like Kundalini meditations and stuff like that. I think that it completely goes at a way slower pace than, like, say, you know, psychedelics, or even just a traumatic experience that pops you awake. It's really difficult to say, because I think it's different for each individual.
Right.
Sure.
Like, I've heard so many stories, like, you know, different ways people wake up, and they're all different. It's really amazing, honestly.
I sort of thought that it was one of these things that you felt it started at the base of your spine, it blew up your spine and blew the top off of your head, and all of a sudden you could see, and you could see spirits, you could do all of these things, and it's like, oh, I want that, you know. And then I thought, oh wait, I don't know that I really want that, but it is.
It's not really like that at all, though. It's more like a process. Like I said, mine catapulted me into seeing energy and all that, and it almost like created this ripple where, you know, I started looking and investigating into energy and spirituality, and I started finding the groups, and it became like this almost like search. Whereas, like, some people, it's very subtle. Like, you know, I would imagine if someone did yoga a lot, that could even happen, because they're doing that meditative releasing process. Because it's really about letting go. Like, that's the core root of awakening, is it's about letting go of your past identity.
Well, in that vein, you do tend to move on from relationships that don't serve
yes,
you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A big core root of that is forgiveness.
Forgiveness and acceptance. And I understand it to be getting your mental,
Yes.
emotional, spiritual, and physical body on the same page, where not one of them's out of resistance. And maybe when, you know, you've got all this going on, but you're not eating or taking care of your body's going to have more resistance and more symptoms than if you were listening to it and following. I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of getting them all on the same page seems important.
It does. And I know that I have, during the last few years, you know, you get the vertigo where you feel like you're walking sideways, or your head really hurts, or you're real fuzzy for a while, or, I mean, there are different things that when you look it up, it's like, oh, okay, this too shall pass. And it does, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's, you know, I'll go to the doctor if I feel that I need to. And so, I mean, according to everything you're saying, Tiffany, we're waking
I'm
up.
in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I think, according to all your list of symptoms. Yep.
Here we are.
And some days are bright and sunny, and some days are dark. It's hard.
But as we often talk about, we need that contrast.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I love your website, and how I found it. I was looking for the harmonic convergence, and which happened in 1987, and there's this grid around the world, around this earth. And so I wanted to know more about that. I mean, just for myself. And you popped up, and the more I dug, the more it's like, oh, this is rich stuff. This is some really great stuff. But you also have information on chakras and astral travel and numerology. I mean, you have all these different, you know, sacred geometry, and they're all under each text. There's just tons of information. You are an encyclopedia.
Well, it's mainly from all the questions I've been receiving. You know, after my awakening, I opened up a blog on Tumblr where people could submit questions, and I just started. What I did is I grabbed my entire archive and put it on the website, and so each category is based on each question. But now I'm also starting to do articles, so there's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, so if you go to theawakenedstate.net, you do literally have a spiritual library on there on all of these different, so you just plug in your symptom, or what's, like you said, some people are very into astral travel. You stick your toe in that water and play with it and mingle with other people and read articles all about that. And yeah, thank you for putting that all together. That's a huge labor of love, especially with...
I also do have a Facebook group, too.
Yeah?
It's the Awakened State Soul Tribe.
The Awakened State
there's the tribe
Soul
again.
Tribe. I love that.
They're a lovely bunch of people.
Shout out.
You can come there and share your questions. And
Now, I also understand, and we're going to take a short break here in just a minute, but you're putting together an e-course will be available on your website. So you're beginning to actually teach. It sounds like teach people.
Yes, I'm finally reaching the stages where I want to start putting all my research together into like a school.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, well, we are going to take a very short break here on Joyride, and we get back. I want to hear more about that with Ashley Aliff, fellow metaphysical mama with theawakenedstate.net. And we're back with Ashley Aliff from theawakenedstate.net, and you've gone through your own Kundalini awakening. You created this blog and website as you went through it, and now collected all this information, and you want to compile it into your own teachings. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, yeah. I'm starting to build an e-course. It's called The Awakening Path. It's mainly about how our subconscious mind is influencing the world around us, and how our mindsets we use in our daily life are either hindering us or empowering us. Because what I've learned on the awakening, just my experiences in general, is that if you start doing all this soul work, it's basically so you are creating manifestations. And what's happening is basically you're going through all this healing work so you can start learning to awaken your life purpose as a co-creator of reality.
Okay,
so my
awaken your
e-course
life
is about focusing on defeating the resistance and understanding it, and learning that it's basically a teacher that is not to be ignored but questioned. We need to start learning to question our egos and why we have this resistance, and how does it create our reality right now, and why do we suffer this way? Why do we let our ego kind of rule the ship, basically?
Why do we let our ego rule the ship?
Because it's what we're taught. We are taught that if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll end up here. And we are taught that.
Exactly. It's about our conditioned patterns.
That's exactly right.
And some people don't come in with that, but many of us do.
I think most of us do. And I think, I was just writing about this. I wrote about this last night, that you go to, you do well in school, you go to college, you either get a job or you do advanced degrees, and the whole reason is so that you can have the nice house, a nice car. Or maybe that was the way I was raised, and then you will be happy. But it's all about programming and what is nice and what is it that we seek. We seek what other people want, right? The guy that gets the hottest girl is the guy that's really popular, and he's the lucky one that everybody looks up to, and that's not true. And I think what this path does is it realigns you to find who you really are. You look inside instead of out.
Yeah.
Yes, because you learn to realize that happiness can't be found outside of you. It must be found internally.
Right.
Exactly. But then there's also this misconception that if you're on the path, you're supposed to give away everything, and the meek shall inherit the earth. And I'm not downplaying that. I don't know a lot about that, but I'm just saying it is. I don't think that that's necessarily true. That I think that we are now in a place where we can have both. At least I hope we can.
Yeah, I believe
I like
that
pretty
too.
things.
I think I mentioned this before, but it's really about learning to create that balance between the external world and the internal world. That's literally the divine marriage that we're trying to create, is the masculine and feminine, or the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly. I think you are exactly right. And so with your e-course, you don't have to give away too much of it, because I think that that people should go on and hop on and find out for themselves. But give us a little taste. Who is it for?
Well, I'm mainly focusing on how we use mindsets, and understanding that mindsets are basically ruling your life.
Mm-hmm.
How we choose to view our beliefs is how we are seeing the world. Because, like how Mike Dooley says, thoughts become things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, you are either created by your limited beliefs, or you're learning to start creating empowering beliefs.
And I love what you
and
said.
So what I've come to learn is, once we start doing that soul work, we're basically creating the building blocks to learn to manifest our dream reality.
Right.
I love that. We have a friend of ours, that Kira, that is, she went through one phase where she looked at everything she thought, everything she could realize she was thinking, she would write down. It's like, do I believe that or do I not believe that? Which I think takes incredible discipline.
That's what I was about to say. I love what you said, Ashley, about your teacher. The ego is your teacher. It's not to be ignored, but to be questioned. And Kira's been a huge proponent. You have to question every thought. Mm-hmm. Question it. What do I believe?
Yeah.
What would I have to believe is true to feel that?
Right.
And really do that internal work. So I love that you said that.
I feel like so many people decide to ignore the ego, or they shame it, or they beat themselves up about it. And I think when we do that, we're really doing a disservice to ourselves, because we're not realizing, well, wait a minute, why am I experiencing this? Why is this, what am I resisting really? And once you start digging deeper, you're like, oh, that's why I was resisting that.
And then it's gone.
And I think that all circles into our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the analogy of your ego being like a puppy, and if it's not trained, it will poop and bark and ruin your house and just create a living hell. But if you train it, it will be your best, most loyal companion, your fetch dog, your watchdog, your protector. But you have to learn to discipline the ego and not let it run the show.
Right,
your heart, your soul
Yeah,
runs the show,
yeah.
and then it will be your.
It's almost like your ego is basically your willpower.
Yeah.
But there are so many
Willpower.
ideas out there that ego's bad and we want to obliterate it and we want to get rid of it. And, I don't like that idea, because I kind of like who I am.
Okay, if you think about it, you are using your ego every day.
Yeah.
That's who you are,
You
right?
wouldn't exist if you didn't have an ego.
Exactly.
So you need both. And I try to make sure that people realize that the ego isn't bad. You know, your negative emotions are not bad. It is how you are viewing your negative emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. And, I think about my kids. One of my sons just popped into my mind, and it's like, I don't feel well, and they're crying and pitching a fit. What's wrong? I don't know. It's like, how many times have we been in that state of, I don't know what's wrong. I just want to throw my phone,
So we can find all the information about the Awakening Path, your new e-course, where you've compiled all of these years of research and articles and experiences into a program where we can literally walk through and start to examine our own thoughts and our own minds, going within and understanding how these limiting mindsets are creating the reality that we're experiencing. And if we don't like it, do the work.
Right.
So we can go to your website and find all that, theawakenedstate.net.
When will it be out?
Currently, it is not out. I am hoping for spring to launch. I've been really pushing myself to do it.
Okay, well, we are ready, eager, and waiting to click apply. So you get that ready. When the time is right, we will be there. And I've just, in the meantime, you can go to the website because you have so many articles. You've got all these tabs about chakras, Kundalini, awakening, energy, rituals, numerology, manifestation, healing, consciousness, insight, astral travel, symbolism and archetypes.
And workbooks too.
And you can click, and then there's just all these articles underneath them with, I think a lot of people have a lot of validation about what they're going through and some tools and techniques, and at least understanding once they read it to kind of go, okay, I get that. That's part of it. I don't have to be afraid of it. Here's how I can use it.
Yeah, I even have some series too. Like I kept getting requests on what is the process like, so I decided to create an article series that is basically goes through like the main pivot points of the spiritual process. I think you can find that on the symptoms page.
Okay, so am I almost done? Am I almost through it? I'm teasing.
Does it ever end? Is there an end point to this? Yeah, does it actually even end, or is it just a continuous of maturing and evolving and
spiral.
Stepping into
you keep
it?
Going back to the same
it's just about evolving as a society. Like, I don't think we realize this, but we are witnessing the evolution of humanity. Like, it sounds weird to say that, but
no, it doesn't.
That is what we're experiencing, and all of us are evolving at different rates in time. And basically, we're all just kind of going through the soul work to get there, I believe.
I've heard, and I love this, it's like a spiral, and that you come to the same point, but you're at a different place. So
yeah.
It is. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's never, we found that from Dr. Deb Kern. Yeah. And I love that idea. Yeah, there were times at the beginning when I would tell Tiffany or Kira, I'm done with this. This shit sucks. I'm done. I don't want to do this, because it would get hard and it would get stressful. And they're like, all right, call us when you're out of your hole. And then I would, okay, never mind. I'm not done. And I was thinking last week, I have not felt that way in a long time, because some of it's just really not fun when you really do resist it and you think,
oh yeah, absolutely. One of my hugest things was overcoming emotions. Like, I used to feel my emotions were really out of control.
Right.
I've heard that explained, that when your boundaries or your emotions, when things change, there is this time frame where you discard the old, but the new is not set yet. And so they really are all over the place. Someone can say, I don't like your shoes, and you start to cry. and it can
get that way.
Yeah.
Because like your soul's almost going through like a purging.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So it's so much fun. Okay, so numerology. I want to hit that before the end of the show, because I've always thought, yes, I take my name and I turn it into things, and I come up with a number, and there we go. But the way you put it is so much more interesting. That they're DNA codes that are triggered, and I mean, it's just beautiful. Can you tell us a little more about that? Because I will botch it if I try.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this all started when I was looking at crystallinks.com, and she has a huge archive, and she has stuff on numerology, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense to me. Because, you know, a lot of times you see numerology codes and they're just like, oh, that's angel numbers, and, you know, it just means you're on the path. And I'm like, well, we're always on the path.
Right, exactly.
So
11,
I started
11.
digging deeper, and I ended up finding Crystal Links, and she attributes numerology to culture and how each number is kind of significant towards the collective unconscious. So, say that simply, basically like how each number is influenced in our world. Like 2 is obviously a duality. You know, 3 could symbolize the physical world because it's the 3rd dimension. And the 4th is time because it's the 4th dimension. And so 5D would be, you know, 555 would be 5D. And it just started piling up, and what I've come to experience is what happens is we experience these numerology codes because they are a subconscious trigger. And Carl Jung has studied this a lot, and he talks about it in Man and His Symbols, I believe. But basically, we experience these numerological codes because we are triggering our mind awake.
Okay.
And so how I can always spot when someone's starting to wake up, they're like, I keep seeing these numbers. And I'm like, yeah, you're on the path to awakening.
Welcome.
Because what happens is you just start seeing them, and then the more you start watching that synchronicity, it builds and builds, and it starts snowballing into your reality to the point where you're like, okay, something's going on here because I keep seeing these numbers, and now I'm seeing deja vu patterns. And this happens because the higher self is trying to get your attention. And it's literally trying to unlock those codes so you can start remembering. And there's even documented studies on this, but subconscious triggers basically trigger our memories. They trigger the long-term memory into acknowledgement. So if you were to think of like your soul blueprint, basically you're like accessing your soul blueprint every time you associate with the numerology.
Oh, what an interesting way to think of it. I just looked at the clock a second ago, and it was 11:11. So,
See?
and often it's my birthday, 10:28. Every time I look, I'm like,
yeah,
Amy.
that's also usually a way for the higher self to communicate to us. Like they're trying to get your attention.
I feel like it's a little wink.
It is a
from
little
Nina
wink.
Rinks.
Well, you know,
it is.
our
And I feel
first...
like a lot of people are like, well, what does it mean? What should I do? And I'm like, well,
Say
think
thank
about
you.
You tell
what are
me.
your thoughts during that moment? What
Exactly.
is Spirit trying to show you? What do you need to see in this moment? Because usually it happens when we have either like a significant shift or something big is going to change. Like I have this weird one called 121, and it just started appearing for me. And it always comes up when I'm ready to embark on a big shift, like
All
a
right.
big change. And so some of them, they're not just like 111 or, 1111. They're different. So it's interesting.
So my father's birthday is my husband's, and my birthday is his dad's. So I thought that was sort of a signpost. And then Tiffany and I had our very first show on my birthday. So my birthday is some sort of a 421. It's some sort of a
Yeah, that's cool.
something.
I haven't resonated so much with the numbers, but I see flashes of blue light, and that always is my trigger for, okay, what am I thinking? Where's my mindset right now? It's almost like that, hey, pay attention to what you're thinking and doing. The little flashes of...
Like your subconscious is trying to...
It's just,
Right.
some little
Look at
heads up, or sometimes if I'm upset, it's some little like, hey, we're here. It's cool. Don't forget. Don't get too far into the fear mindset. We're here. And it's like, oh, it's just a little flash of blue light, sometimes right in front of me or around my vision that reminds me. It's just like a little reminder. So,
I get that too, and I've always thought it was spirit. Like it's a guide or an angel.
Something,
that's right there. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wanted to ask you, Ashley, how has it been having babies with this state, and how have they come in?
Honestly, they teach me new things all the time.
Right? They are our teacher.
I think as a mother, you really learn to open up your heart more, like, because you're not putting yourself first anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I know they're so young, but do you see their colors, their auras? Do you kind of get a feel for who they are and what they're all about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel, the way I see children is children are the evolved versions of ourselves. So I mean, literally.
Children are the
So-
adult versions of ourselves. Evolved versions. Okay. Yeah.
I love that.
They're
That's
so
true.
sweet and innocent and trusting and loving, aren't they?
Yeah,
Those
they
itty-bitties.
are.
They're here to teach
Yeah.
us. Well, we're
Well, as I've come to learn, is really like children themselves, they already believe they're infinite beings. It's only when they start being like conditioned is when they start really developing that ego sense.
yeah, and they're master manifestors. They have us take care of them, feed them, entertain them, snuggle them.
I want milk. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
I love that.
So what's your next thing? So your e-course, and then eventually you want this to lead into a school, or you see this moving into a place, metaphysical studies.
Yeah, that's my absolute dream. Is I would really like to start changing all of my research into schools so I can directly start helping people. Because I really like sharing all this information, but I feel like there isn't enough, there's not enough workshops out there. You know, there's not enough hands-on experience. Like, we're not getting our hands dirty, so to speak. Like, we need to start bringing each other together in a way where we could start doing the work and experiencing those changes. Like, one thing I have right now is an Awakens library where people can download workbooks so they can start learning to talk to their spirit guides. There's one that's like a dreaming workbook where you can start asking yourself power questions. I'm really fond of power questions where you start digging deeper about yourself. And I have just other guides in there about like the beginner's guide of spiritual awakening. But basically, the thing is we're being given all this information, but we're not really implementing it into the real world. And that's what I really am striving to do is, like, we need to start bringing our tools to the physical world.
Yeah, not just understanding them logically, but actually experiencing them and putting them into practice.
Well, and what I love,
Yeah, exactly.
what I hear you saying is that it's not, hey, do what I do. It's let me ask you the questions so that you can figure it out for yourself.
Yes.
I think that's incredible.
Well, and that's the best teacher too, right?
Well, yeah, you're going inside.
Yeah. And you're a wealth of information, and we are so excited to know you and to introduce our Joy Tribe to you. And for anybody
I'm
this
very
is
happy to be here.
resonating with, where her website is theawakenedstate.net. And as we've been talking about, there's just so many places to dip your toe in and start relating to other people and other experiences to make your own journey, hopefully, that much easier.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear where you are in your journey, what questions you have, and we'll put the links to everything on joyrideshow.com so that you can connect with Ashley personally, if that sounds good.
Oh, I love that. And I can't wait to see where you are in 10 years.
I know,
If this is where
right?
you are at 27. This is exciting.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the show. So we will see you soon, and come visit us at joyrideshow.com.
Absolutely. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.